the art of fighting without fighting? Show me some of it.
Hi there everybody, Michael Valenti here with the School of Self-Defense in Indianapolis, and in today's video I'm going to be answering one of my viewers' questions about the effectiveness of pressure points in a fighting situation. Now of course, if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button, click the thumbs up and click the bell so that you can get notified anytime I release a new video. And of course, if you do not live in the Indianapolis area and you would like to train with me at a distance, we can do that now through our website, kenpo360.com. So be sure to check it out. All the information is in the description box down below. So the question that they had was, how effective are pressure points in a fight? Are they just a cheap trick? Are they like a magic trick? Or are they actually lethal tools to knock somebody out with a single touch? Well, before I get into answering the question completely, let's talk about what a pressure point actually is. All a pressure point really is it's an area in which one of the nerves of your body is more exposed than on other parts of you. You can find this very easy. Everybody can find this one very easy, that if you have your hand like this and you go to the webbing of between your thumb and index finger and you pinch just about here, you'll feel that's a very tender spot. It hurts, and you can pinch anywhere else on your hand and it doesn't hurt as bad as pinching right here. And that's because there's a nerve exposed right there. And that's all a pressure point actually is. So pressure points are just an area where we can actually press down on a nerve to inflict pain. Now, in the vast majority of the cases, these pressure points are doing no harm whatsoever. They can cause a lot of pain, especially to somebody who's not used to having their pressure point squeezed and bumped into. But they are ultimately not really doing any damage to your opponent. And the idea that a pressure point can serve as some sort of like Vulcan, pinch that drops somebody and knocks somebody out is just that. It's from the realm of fantasy. When you see that happening with characters like George Dillman, what you're really seeing is either someone who's been paid to pass out, or probably more likely something along the lines of mass hysteria, mass hypnosis. I'll give you a story about this happening where in order to kind of study the effects of hypnotism, they hypnotized a guy, this is somewhere in like the 60s or 70s, and they told the guy while under hypnosis that they were going to burn him with an iron rod. And the iron rod that they placed on his arm was just a cold iron rod. But when they placed it on him, the guy began to scream just bloody murder like he was being burnt, which they expected because you would see that when somebody's under some kind of hypnosis. But something that the doctors didn't expect to see was that the skin started showing some signs of being burned. It started to swell and redden almost like it had been burned. And this was the body literally reacting to it because he believed that he was being burned so thoroughly, so deeply, that his body began to show signs of being burned. But ultimately, he wasn't actually burned. It was just the placebo effect times 20, as far as I can describe it simply. And I think that when we see pressure points working as a means to like knock somebody out, you'll see someone be like, oh, if I press this special spot here, the person will fall down. I think most of the time that's probably what's actually happening, is the person is just so desperately believing in the technique that it works on them. But the test of whether or not a martial arts technique works shouldn't be whether or not it works on someone who believes in it. A martial arts technique should work especially on someone who doesn't believe in it. The amount of times in my life in which I've had ultimately friendly challenge matches with people who basically said that martial arts was BS. And so I said, all right, if you think martial arts is BS, put on some gloves and fight me and we'll see. And every single time my martial arts worked, regardless of the fact that they didn't believe it worked. Now let's talk about where pressure points do have value. Well, pressure points are a way to get somebody moving. There's a lot of times when I am grappling that I'm having a hard time moving someone, and placing my hand or my thumb on a nerve that makes it physically painful for them to lean into me allows me to alleviate their pressure. And for people who aren't used to having a pressure point done to them, lots of times they move away like violently and I can get a lot of motion. But the frustrating thing about pressure points is they're kind of like being ticklish. That in the same way that there are some people who are more ticklish than others, and there's also some people who are ticklish in different places than others, pressure points seem to be the same kind of grab bag. I can find generally on anybody I'm sparring with or I'm playing with, I can find some sort of pressure point that will inflict pain, but the degree of pain and exactly where it is seems to differ from person to person. Whereas I find them as a fun tool, a little accent, a little exclamation point at the end of my martial arts sentences, they are far too unreliable to actually be a focused study in the world of martial arts. But that doesn't mean that I think that they are without value. As a final note, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, pressure points ultimately don't do any real damage. And I think that's probably their greatest weakness. That if I put you in a finger lock, so I go to break your finger, and you don't comply, I break your finger. Your finger's broken. So now you can't use your hand. If I put you in a choke, and you don't comply, you pass out. There is a consequence to your actions. It's not just pain, it's literally incapacitation. Pressure points do not incapacitate your opponent, they simply hurt them. So if you're dealing with a really tough dude who doesn't mind the pain, he could ignore it and keep moving forward, which I find very unreliable. Early in my martial arts career, I really had the viewpoint of if it hurts, it works. So that's all I cared about. I cared that what I did hurt the guy who I was fighting. Now I have a little bit more seasoning in the world of martial arts. I actually don't really care that much if my techniques hurt. I don't care if my opponent feels them at all. Only thing that I care about is whether or not my techniques stop my opponent. So pressure points, do they work? Kind of. They inflict pain, they are a real thing, but they can be ignored. They're absolutely not a Vulcan, squeeze that's going to knock somebody out. Many people comment on my videos, having not made it all the way to the end. So since we've been talking about some ninja shit, include the phrase ninja shit in your comment to me. That way you and I both know you made it to the end. And of course, if you've made it to the end of the video and you're not subscribed, what's wrong with you? You're clearly enjoying this content. Just hit that subscribe button, the bell button, the thumbs up button. You know how to do the whole YouTube thing. And of course, if you are too far away from Indianapolis to train with me in person, I now have an avenue for you to train with me at a distance at our website, kenpo360.com. So until next time, everybody, I'm Michael Valenti with the School of Self-Defense. Fight on.